Hello there, men, and welcome to the Masculinism Movement channel, a place for men to be men and talk about masculinity and men's issues. I'm your host, Brian Krall, and today I want to talk to you about the many disadvantages of being male. Now, I know you're probably thinking, why do you want to complain about what the disadvantages are of being a man? Well, I thought it was important to generate awareness about this because of how much propaganda feminism has been spreading about male privilege and how that propaganda is all just bullshit and a way to cover up the fact that women are actually the privileged ones and men are the disadvantaged ones. So in order to prove this, I whipped up this list and I easily came up with 83 of them. And I'm sure I could have come up with 100 or more if I had, given it more time, but I also don't want to take too long and don't want it to become redundant. So I decided to just leave it with these 83. All right, so I'm going to go through these as fast as possible to try to make sure this doesn't take any, more time than it has to. And you can just make note of the ones that you agree with or have experienced yourself. And can be sure to share these whenever you hear the phrase male privilege, or you could just share this video anytime, some feminist is talking about male privilege. All right, but anyways, without any further ado, here are the 83 disadvantages of being male that disprove the propaganda about male privilege. 1, men are much less likely to reproduce and have kids than women are. In fact, the statistic is that men are twice as likely as women to end up involuntarily childless. 2, men have to earn respect, and even then, they are often not respected. Women are given respect without having to earn it, just for being born female. 3, men are often victimized, more often than women are, in fact, but they are seldom allowed to be the victim when they are victimized. I know this from my personal experience as someone who was assaulted on the job in a robbery, as well as assaulted by girlfriends before as well. What I found is that there is very little support for male victims out there, even though there are an abundance of us. Which leads me to number 4, men don't have the built-in support system that women have, but instead, 5, men are expected to suppress their emotions. And even the same people who say that men should be able to express their feelings will punish them for doing so. Emotional men are vilified. 6, men work longer hours than women. 7, men seldom receive credit they are due. The patriarchy gets no credit for making life easier, cleaner, healthier, and safer through technology, education, and medicine. 8, women receive more scholarships and educational opportunities and diplomas and degrees and are now having their poor educational choices forgiven with the student loan forgiveness program paid for by mostly male tax dollars. And 9, welfare and other social programs for men are almost non-existent. They are there to serve women almost exclusively. 10, feminism skews statistics and facts in its favor to make men look worse and women look better, or where necessary to make women look worse off and like victims of circumstance, and men look better off and thus patriarchal oppressors, when oftentimes the facts are actually the other way around, such as with domestic violence stats. 11, male domestic violence shelters barely exist, in spite of female-on-male domestic violence being more common than male-on-female domestic violence. There is 1 homeless shelter that exists for men versus over 2,000 for women. 12, male success is dismissed to privilege rather than hard work. 13, men are expected to be providers for women. Men can't marry for money, but women can and often do. 14, male objectification is totally acceptable as men are treated as success objects and status objects by women, while the objectification of women by men has been deemed unacceptable. 15, women use men for their resources, and this is socially acceptable too, but a woman feeling used by a man for sex or anything else is not. 16, man-hating rhetoric is not seen as sexist, but is socially acceptable, whereas misogynistic language by men is decried as a hate crime. 17, men are not naturally multi-orgasmic, but women are. And the male orgasm is only a fraction as powerful as the female's, specifically 1/8. 18, men cannot blame the government and patriarchy for their failures and bad choices, but women can. 19. Men are always to blame and must take responsibility for anything that goes wrong in any situation involving a woman. The man is always wrong and the woman is always right. 20. Men are portrayed as bumbling idiots on TV sitcoms controlled by a strong, smart, competent, level-headed woman who is never wrong. 21. In TV commercials, men are also portrayed as idiots, and any bad behavior or bad conditions are male characters and male voiced, as with Allstate, Mayhem Man, Mucinex, Cold Character, and such. 22. Violence against men in TV shows and TV commercials is portrayed as funny and harmless. 23. Male bashing and shaming is socially acceptable, while female bashing and shaming is not. 24. Single mothers are deemed heroic, in spite of the fact that they create more criminals and suicide victims and other problems with children that they raise. And the state doesn't allow men to become single parents or even get equal custody. 25. Men marry women with debt, not the other way around. 26. Women are far more judgmental towards and rejecting of men than men are of women when it comes to dating. Women can find something wrong with just about any man and will reject him for the littlest thing. But if a man is being judgmental when evaluating a woman, it is seen as objectifying. Women having standards is seen as empowering, and men having standards is seen as sexist. 27. Men who are unemployed are considered losers. No such judgment for unemployed women, though. 28. Men are more likely to become homeless than women. There has never been any concern over this by women or society at large. However, soon as the female homelessness rate started rising, it made the news and became a national issue. 29. Men are expected to date down. Hypogamy. Women only date up. Hypergamy. 30. Men are expected to provide for women's children from a previous marriage, but no such obligation by women to provide for men's children from a previous marriage exists. 31. Men's actions are constantly scrutinized for what may be perceived as being malicious against women, while contrarily, women are given a free pass to behave maliciously against men. 32. Male suicide is 5 times higher than women's, and there has never been any concern over this by women or society at large. However, as soon as the female suicide rate started rising, it made the news and became a national issue, just like homelessness. 33. Men are much more likely to be involuntarily celibate. For 80 to 95% of men out there, getting their sexual needs met is difficult and frustrating. Something no woman will ever understand, for any woman can easily get a man who is more attractive than her to go to bed with her. 34. Men seldom get paternity leave. 35. Police take the side of the woman in any situation involving both genders, even if it is the man who called them on the woman. 36. Men are called predatory and rapey by nature by feminists. And feminists say men are the only ones who can rape, that it's not possible for a female to rape a male. Right? When a man gets raped or sexually assaulted, especially by a woman, it is ignored by feminists, and it will be by the justice system too if it was done by a female. 37. Men can't just get buyer's remorse after sex and accuse a woman of rape, but a woman can do this to a man quite easily and can bring him up on charges even if it was in fact consensual, and at the very least cause him a lot of problems, or at the most cause him to actually go to jail and get raped himself, for which, of course, he has no legal recourse or protection. 38. Men have to tolerate female hypocrisy and double standards, which are normalized and socially acceptable. In many situations with a woman, a man's damned if he does and damned if he doesn't. The woman's right even when she's wrong. 39. Men can't choose inequality when it is advantageous in one condition, then equality when it is advantageous in another, right? Such as with how women want to be a modern independent woman when it is beneficial to them, but then want traditional gender norms when it is beneficial to them. 40. Men naturally die younger than women. 41. Men's deaths make up the vast majority of work-related deaths because they do work that is harder on the body, and men are the majority in the most dangerous jobs, such as armed forces, police, fire protection, construction, mining, logging, etc. 42. Men's deaths during a war are far greater than women's because they get drafted and women don't. And women get to vote even though they don't have to register for the draft, which is something that wasn't supposed to be the case. 43. Men are expendable. It's women and children first. 44. Men cannot opt out of war by getting pregnant in the armed forces. 45. Men have no choice concerning a pregnancy. It is entirely up to the woman. So that leads me to 46, that men can be forced to be fathers, and 47, that men can be denied the right to fatherhood. And 48, women can legally abandon children at fire stations, police stations, or use adoption without the father having any say in it. Obviously, men can't do that. 49, a father's emotional contribution to the family is considered less important than the mother's. 50, men's love of their children is not considered as strong as a mother's. 51, society has no concern for the lives of divorced men. 52, men are subjected to being baby trapped and having intentional pregnancy done by the woman and it being legal, as well as 53, men being subjected to paternity fraud, being deceived by a woman to support her with, a child or children by another man, and it also being legal. 54, men are made to pay child support and are treated as an endless supply of income, regardless of the condition of the economy and their employment. Child support can never be lessened, even if the man loses income. 55, men pay a disproportionate share of the tax burden. And 56, men consume less in tax benefits than women. In spite of paying more in taxes, they consume less of the benefits through, the social programs such as welfare, WIC, food stamps, Medicaid, Social Security, etc. That mostly benefits women, not men, even though we're paying for it. 57, men pay taxes to support children they didn't create through, again, welfare, food stamps, and Medicaid. 58, men are blamed for the poor choices that women make concerning men that women choose. When women date only bad boy alpha male assholes who are abusive and then friend zone the nice guys, they then start saying that all men are abusive assholes and punishing all men for their bad mating choices, even though it was them who chose the guy who was the obvious asshole and not the obvious nice guy. 59, men are expected to adhere to outdated social traditions, while feminism gives women more and more new freedoms and privileges. 60, men are expected to initiate all contact with women they want to date. 61, men are expected to pay for the dates. 62, men are forced to finance organizations that are openly hostile to them, such as women's studies, affirmative action, and feminist political programs. 63, women can publicly insult and humiliate men, which has been proven to be a traumatic event, without any social condemnation. 64, men who are unattractive, short, or fat get belittled by women. However, women in these cases get empowered. Women who are unattractive get activism. Women who are fat get called BBWs. The same woman who is unattractive and fat will actually belittle a man who is unattractive and fat and say that she is worth more than him. If that man called himself a BBM and tried to empower himself with activism, he would just get more public humiliation. 65. Sex is easily obtained for women and not for men because women generally do not find men attractive. An OkCupid study where women rated men's attractiveness showed that women didn't find any men on the site to be the most attractive men on the site, and found the majority of them unattractive. A Tinder study showed that what used to be the 80-20 rule is now more like the 85-5 rule. And yet, even though the majority of men are marginalized in the sexual marketplace, when they do not have sex, they don't get activism like women do. They are shamed for it and called incels. However, when a woman feels marginalized in the sexual marketplace, she calls it problematic and discrimination and other things which she needs activism, equality, and empowerment for. But the men who have been made into incels and sexually shamed by women for it don't get these things. But then there's 66, even when men do have sex. Men have the burden of proof for it being consensual. No such requirement exists for women. Men are responsible for women's actions in sex. And if a woman has been drinking, even if she is throwing herself at a man and practically raping him, she can still later say that she was drunk and didn't know what she was doing and isn't responsible for her actions, and the man actually was raping her, even though she was the one, going at it with him. Yet, interestingly enough, if the same drunk woman climbs into a car, drives away, and then gets into an accident and maybe even kills someone, she could still get charged for a crime because she had made the decision to drink and drive. There's, again, this legal double standard where once the man in sexuality gets involved, the woman has no agency, right? But yet that same woman, if she were to hurt someone else because she was drinking in an accident, she would be at fault. So the law obviously has no clear standard for this. And also, 67, a woman making false accusations against a man is not a criminal act. Women have no incentive to not do this, right? Because it is legal. 68, man's reputation can easily be ruined with no consequences to the woman, as in the case of Mattress Girl at Columbia University. 69, male circumcision is not seen as genital mutilation, even though that is exactly what it is and is a human rights violation that is, again, legal and socially acceptable and common, and something that is pushed on babies when they are born at hospitals as a medical form of castration. 70, prostate cancer receives little or no public attention versus breast cancer in society, even though men die from prostate cancer more, and there's an underfunding of research for male-specific medical disorders like prostate cancer. 71, fathers' rights are almost non-existent when compared to a mother's in a divorce. 72, men have the entire legal system stacked against them in a legal dispute or crime involving a woman. 73, men receive longer sentences for the same crime, even when they are committing the same exact crime together. For instance, a couple who was tried together for the same exact crime that that they committed together received different sentences. Lori Loughlin received 2 months, whereas her husband Massimo Giannulli received 5 months. 74. Affirmative action is politically correct discrimination against white males based upon their sex and race. 75. Men's rights activist meetings and forums at universities are routinely protested by feminists because they do not think we men deserve rights. 76. There are fewer men in college than women. 2,200,000 more women than men in 2019. 77, there's an obvious double standard when it comes to violence. When a woman hits a man, he gets laughed at. If a man even looks like he's going to hit a woman, there's men who come to his protection. And if a man does hit a woman, even in self-defense, he goes to jail, generally speaking. 78, men are looked upon with suspicion and oftentimes perceived as naturally violent, having criminal intent, or even as potential sexual predators. 79, men don't get special treatment, entry, or reduced prices as women do in ladies' nights, for instance, or special ladies-only events, special sales for women only, things where women get special tickets, or even just drink specials. These types of things where you are giving women a different price for the same thing, right? Or giving them special amenities. This is supposed to be illegal. You're not supposed to be able to charge people two different prices or give them two different quality things based on their gender. But yet this does happen, and because it favors women when it does, it is allowed. But if this were happening in reverse, women would be crying out sexism. And number 80, remember back in the day when white people and black people had separate bathrooms in America, and it was supposed to be separate but equal, but then it was made public that these separate bathrooms weren't equal. They were, in fact, unequal. The white people had far better facilities than the black people. And so that changed, and the black people and white people both got the same quality facilities. However, men and women get two different quality facilities, and most places offer women far better bathrooms than they offer men. I wonder why that is legal. That should, again, be sexism against men. When it was happening between whites and blacks, it was obviously racism. But why is it then not sexism if it is happening between men and women? Oh, right, because it favors women, so it's not seen as sexism. So you see what's happening here? Number 81, men's social injustices and issues are dismissed and ignored. Male discrimination is normalized and socially accepted and not even seen as discrimination or sexism. And 82, men have less rights and more responsibilities than women. We are basically treated like second-class citizens or even slaves. And 83, women are loved by men unconditionally, and men are only loved by women as much as they provide for them. So those are the 83 male disadvantages that I was able to come up with. If I missed any, list them below. Let's add to the list and see if we can't get it to 100 or more. But that concludes this talk. Thank you for listening. Be sure to share your own thoughts and opinions by commenting below. And if you like this video, be sure to hit the like button and share these messages with everyone by sharing the video on social media and talking about these things as well. Again, anytime you hear the phrase male privilege, make sure you share this information. And lastly, check out the links in the description below for other resources for your masculine personal development and living the life you want to as an independent man. And stay tuned for the next video coming out soon, which will be on the anti-male, pro-female gender bias called gamma bias. And make sure you are subscribed so you'll be notified when that is. And until then, take care of yourselves, men, because no woman out there is going to.